At my funeral, my son brought in the woman who had once slept with me 3 times. With a bright smile, he said, "Mom, I know you couldn't rest in peace worrying about me after your death, but now I've found my true love. You can finally rest. Rest in peace. How about I make you rest in peace for having such poor taste in women?" I bolted upright from my coffin. No way would I agree to this, not even in death. My sudden movement scared the mourners so much that they scattered in every direction. Within moments, only a few people remained. My son Billy hid behind his beloved, trembling. "Mom, you've come back to life," he stammered as he cowered. I got so mad, I came back to life. Seeing him hide made me even angrier. If he weren't my only biological son, I'd wish I could send him back to the womb. My father was the richest man in the province, and I was his only daughter. When I was young, I had been spoiled and head over heels in love. I didn't like the rich boys around me and foolishly fell for Stephen, Billy's dad, who was the classic case of a man marrying up. My dad looked down on him, but after my relentless pleading, he eventually agreed. While my dad was alive, Stephen played the part of the perfect son-in-law and husband. Once my dad passed and Stephen took over the company, I stayed home as a housewife, and he dared to have an affair. And the woman he cheated with is standing right before me now, Jo. She was just a 20-year-old college student back then. Seeing Billy act like a coward made Jo frown, but she quickly put on a gentle facade and said, "Auntie, please let me and Billy be. We are truly in love." I froze. This scene felt so familiar. She had said the same thing back then. "Auntie, please let me and Stephen be. We are truly in love." I was speechless with the betrayal from my husband and her true love nonsense. I was too stunned to respond then, but I wouldn't be so foolish now. "True love? You don't even deserve to say those words." "True love?" I laughed mockingly. "Back then, you and Stephen had true love. Now you're saying the same with my son. Will I be your next true love too?" "Girl, seems like you wholesale your true love." "Auntie, I don't understand what you're saying," she replied with a classic innocent look, just like the one years ago. I never thought I'd see Jo's nauseating look again after 8 years. "Mom, you may not like Jo, but how can you say such things about her and Dad? She's a good girl. You can't defame her, not even if you're my mom. It's been years since Dad passed. Can't you let him rest in peace? Is lying about him worth hurting his memory?" Billy finally realized I wasn't dead and jumped out from behind Jo. His words made me gasp. I pampered him all these years, and this is the thanks I get. I had thought he was clueless about his dad's affair, being abroad and all, but now I faced him and told him the truth, and he calls me a liar and still wants to be with her. What kind of spell did Jo cast on him? "Auntie, you may not like me, but you can't defame me like this," Jo said, her face showing just the right amount of sorrow to prompt a man's protective instinct. "Billy studied abroad for years and just returned to be with me. You don't have to like me, but can't you let your son be happy? Did you fake your death today?" She paused, letting her silence speak volumes, achieving her goal. Billy's eyes flared up with anger. "Mom, I hadn't even thought of that until Jo mentioned it. You're out of line. Not only did you defame Jo, but you also lied about your death. Are you planning to leave all the money to Laura? Is she your secret daughter?" Laura is the daughter I adopted later, and has always had a crush on my useless son. I had intended for her to be my future daughter-in-law, but I didn't want to interfere with young people's feelings. Little did I expect Billy to take his freedom way too far. "Brother, what are you talking about? Mom would never," Laura tried to explain, but was cut off by Billy. "Shut up, this isn't your place. Who's your brother? My parents only had me. You and Mom scheming to cheat me out of the inheritance, right? You moved into our home after Dad passed. I knew you had an agenda. Stop pretending to be nice." Hearing his words infuriated me even more. "Billy, you shut up. I'm not dead yet, and you're already denying your family and sister. If I were really dead, wouldn't you just turn the world upside down?" His words broke my heart. Though he studied abroad for years, he only learned theory and lacked practical experience. Taking charge half a year after returning with my help, he still performed just average. I had been keeping the company in check, but what if I wasn't around? Handing the company to him worried me. Earlier this year, I was diagnosed with mid-stage colon cancer. Although I received treatment, the results weren't promising. I wasn't afraid of dying, but I kept worrying about my son. I resorted to this desperate measure. In case I passed suddenly, I wanted to see the company's true colors and discreetly help him if needed to ensure a peaceful departure. Unexpectedly, just 2 days into my faked death, he already caused trouble at my funeral. Before my body even cooled, he wasn't thinking about me or the anxious company, but was entangled in true love with a woman I detested. "Billy, don't argue with Auntie. I'm here to join the family, not to break it. If Auntie really dislikes me, I'll leave. Joe turned to leave, knowing full well she wouldn't step out that door. If you go, Joe, I'll leave with you. No matter who opposes, I'm staying with you, Billy declared, predictably reacting like a lovesick puppy. Mom lied about being sick and faked her death. I'm her own son, and yet I mean less to her than an adopted daughter. Staying in this family means nothing to me. This wasn't for Joe, this was aimed at me. Watching their mutual affection, I laughed. Fine, if you want to leave, do it thoroughly. Want to leave? As your mom, I'll make it happen. All your cards are frozen, leave your car keys, the property's reclaimed, and don't bother coming to the company tomorrow. I want to see how you handle your true love with nothing. Auntie, if you don't like me, I'll leave. But you can't treat Billy like this. He's your own son. Just as I expected, my silly son was still clueless, but Joe was already protesting. Mom, I'm your real son. You're really harsh. You don't like me anymore. Billy yelled. Joe can't leave. She's carrying my child. Hearing that, my head couldn't help but buzz. Billy and Stephen really are father and son. They say the same things. Looking at Billy's young face, it was like seeing Stephen 8 years ago. Back then, Stephen told me Joe was pregnant with his child. She was a naive college girl, and when she got with him, she was still a virgin. So he had to take responsibility. He was spending my money to keep a mistress, pretending it was true love. He kept saying he was sorry for both of us, but wanted me to help him atone. Because I had everything, and Joe had nothing but him, I had to let them have their love. I stared at him, speechless, touching my own belly which hadn't yet shown. There was a little life inside too, but her dad didn't know and only wanted to divorce me to be someone else's husband and father. I snapped out of it as Billy said, Joe is pregnant, she can't work. You want me to have nothing? How can I take care of her and your grandchild? How lucky am I to get this ridiculous father and son duo? After a while, I said to my useless son, the baby is yours, not mine. If you have the guts to walk out, don't rely on me anymore. Take your true love and get lost. I'll pretend you're not my son. First thing I did when I got home was to tell our housekeeper Tim to throw all Billy's stuff out. Laura stopped me. Mom, Billy's just confused. He'll come around. Doing this will only make things worse, and that woman will get her way. She knew about the history between Joe and me. I was a little annoyed with this girl. Billy likes someone else and still treated you badly. And you're defending him. Doesn't matter if he likes me or not, we're family. From now on, I'll see him only as a brother. Laura lowered her eyes, staring at the ground, hiding her emotions. He doesn't deserve you, Laura. I'll find you someone 1,000 times better, and he'll regret it. I tenderly pinched her cheek. Mom, I don't want to think about that now. I just want you to get better. Don't worry, Mom knows her health. You take care of yourself. When I'm happy, I feel better too. Starting tomorrow, you'll take over Billy's job. If the big one's spoiled, I'll switch to the little one. I have money and power, and I don't lack heirs. I've thought it through. Laura is the best candidate to be the current CEO. She's extremely smart. Since I adopted her, she's had a great education and kept skipping grades. By 18, she already got her MBA from Wharton. She's shown great business talent, often having unique insights even as a child. As she grew, she juggled school and interning at the company. For tough decisions, I always consulted her. She knows the company as well as I do, making her the perfect successor. No, Mom, what if Billy comes back? He believes those baseless rumors and the misunderstandings will just grow. I cut her off. I don't consider him my son anymore. Today he believed rumors and left us for a woman without a thought for his family or me. Tomorrow, he could harm the company for her. Billy may be my son, but I have to admit he's mediocre in business. Forcing him to take over could ruin everything. The company isn't just mine. I have to think about shareholders and employees too. Even if he comes back, I won't let him take over. Mom, think of the rumors this will stir up. Laura looked worried. I'm old. I don't fear rumors. They'll never become truth. But you'll face a lot. I fear I won't be here to help you. All I wanted was to give Laura a good life by adopting her. But now she endures these baseless accusations, especially from the person she likes most. No, Mom, don't say such negative things. You have to believe you'll get better. Laura is an orphan. I adopted her when she was 10. I've always treated her well, and people noticed. There were always rumors that Laura was my illegitimate daughter. People said I adopted her after Stephen died to set her up for an inheritance battle with Billy. But no one knew we were saving each other. I first met Laura just like her name suggests, on a rainy day. I had a car accident, lying motionless in a pool of blood. Little Laura dragged me out of the wreck bit by bit. Not long after she pulled me out, the car exploded. She saved my life. Once I recovered, I searched everywhere to find her. When I did, she was digging through garbage for food. I extended my hand. Do you want to come with me? She looked at me in confusion, then wiped her dirty hands on her clothes and carefully took my hand. Her little hand was dirty and sweaty, but I didn't care. I noticed her bright eyes, full of light, staring at me. From that moment on, she became my daughter. I brought her home, just as Billy came back from his high school summer break. Billy didn't show much reaction then. He was a bit distant, but not openly hostile like now. 8 years have passed, they've both grown up, but everything has changed. That night, I got a strange call. When I answered, I heard a voice that could have been either male or female, but even with a voice changer, I knew who it was. Lily, if I can't get your husband, I'll get your son. He's your only biological son, and I'm carrying your grandchild. Add Stephen to that, and the 3 most important men in your life are all mine. Crazy Joe. I chuckled angrily and said, you missed one, my dad. Why don't you go snatch him up too? Lily, I know you have a terminal illness. When you're gone, the company will be mine. How dare she insult me? But I wasn't in a hurry. I'd have a big surprise for her the next day to spoil her plans. I look forward to it, I said, then hung up. The next morning, I took Laura to the company and called for a board meeting. I'd been dead just a few days, and these old guys were already in chaos. They didn't like Billy, this young rookie, so they were always giving him trouble. When I was around, I could help him with that, but the past few days without me, he was overwhelmed by their constant pressure. It's okay, I'll set things right today. We got there early. The other shareholders hadn't arrived yet, but someone else beat us to it. In the conference room, Billy was sitting in the president's chair, with Joe standing beside him. As long as I'm alive, you don't get to sit there. Today, I'm removing you from your position, I told Billy, glancing at Joe. This is a board meeting, not just anyone can attend. Mom, are you serious? Kicking me out of the house wasn't enough. Now you're stripping me of my job. Who are you giving the company to? Laura, Billy said, fuming. You were always just the acting president. Now that I'm alive, it's none of your concern. I told you yesterday, if you're dead set on leaving, you're completely cutting ties with me. Now you can take care of your wife and kid. Mom, are you trying to starve my family to death? Am I not your real son? When you found true love, didn't you already disown me? Besides, you still hold 5% of your grandpa's company stock. The yearly dividends are enough for you 3 to live on. You want to defy me and be with this disgusting woman, but still want my money and the company. Dream on. I am your real son. You can't just kick me out of the company. Who else can you make your heir? My illegitimate daughter, I said, pushing Laura forward to provoke him. Mom, don't say that to upset him. Billy, that's not what Mom meant, Laura quickly explained. So you finally admit it. You betrayed Dad, then conveniently brought her home after his accident. Joe is just a cover. You're just looking for an excuse to get rid of me and elevate your illegitimate daughter, Billy said, full of disdain. I looked at my biological son, feeling a chill in my heart. I had said Joe was his father's mistress, but he didn't believe me and instead questioned my relationship with Laura. Billy, Aunt is dead set on making your sister the heir. You and your sister are both Aunt's blood. We should leave. Don't upset Aunt. Her health isn't strong yet, Joe said softly but viciously. This is a family matter. Who do you think you are to interfere? Laura said, defending me. Laura, you sure have grown bold with Mom's support. Joe is going to marry me. Who do you think you are? She's carrying my child. At best you're an illegitimate daughter. We are family. You are the outsider. What's wrong with her? Billy mocked me, faking illness to kick me out and pave the way for her illegitimate child. You ungrateful brat. Get out. I wish I'd never had you. Billy's words made my head spin, and I had to sit down quickly. Mom, are you okay? Laura rushed to support me. Billy, say what you want about me, but Mom's health. Laura, that's enough. I'm fine. Billy, there's karma for everything. The way you treat me and your sister, be careful, or you might face retribution. Don't die before me. I interrupted her. Billy was lost to reason. No point talking to him anymore. Billy was startled, but kept his defiant attitude. I'm not wrong. We're not leaving. If anyone leaves, it's Laura. Even if I'm not president, I'm on the board. Why can't I attend the meeting? You're not acting president anymore. Don't disgrace yourself in that seat. Get up, I told Billy. And this woman, have someone throw her out. The board members will be here soon. This company doesn't employ such low-class service girls. Don't, Billy. Hearing my humiliation, Joe's eyes reddened, grabbing Billy's sleeve fearfully. Billy immediately embraced her, saying, Joe, I won't let you suffer this humiliation. I'll transfer all my stock to you for free. I dare anyone to kick you out." He looked at me triumphantly. Joe hadn't expected that. She forgot to keep up her innocent act and her eyes lit up with greed. I was dumbfounded by Billy's stupidity, doubting if I brought the wrong child home from the hospital. "Fine, she stays, but you get out. You're ruthless." "Fine, I'm going," he said, turning to leave. "Wait." Billy looked hopeful, thinking I'd relented, and turned back to me. "Mom, are you agreeing? Even if you transfer your shares to her for free, you still have to pay taxes. 20% income tax, and 5% stamp duty. With your current situation, who can afford that?" I smiled at Billy. "Me?" Billy was stunned. I looked at his stupid expression, and sneered internally. "Trying to set me up, in your dreams. Let's go, Miss Joe. Don't make me call someone to escort you out," I said to the woman I loathed. Joe could no longer maintain her innocent facade. She glared at me and turned to leave. "Lost your cool already?" "Joe, this is just the beginning. Since you dared to come back and walk into my trap, this time I'm going to make sure you get the punishment you deserve." At the board meeting, I announced the dismissal of Billy from all his positions and appointed Laura as the CEO. The board members murmured among themselves, but no one dared to oppose. After all, everyone had witnessed Laura's capabilities. She was involved in several major projects this year, much more convincing than the previously parachuted in Billy. I also transferred all my shares to Laura. This way, even if something happens to me, she won't be caught off guard. Although Billy is quite foolish, I know that the real threat is Joe, a lurking viper, ready to strike from the shadows. After the board meeting, Billy shot me a spiteful look as he slinked away, looking like a beaten dog. In my memory, he was once a spirited, kind-hearted young man, but as he grew older, all those wonderful qualities vanished with time. If I had any lingering hope for him yesterday, today I was completely disillusioned. Perhaps it was my failure in raising him, or the result of spoiling him too much, and sending him abroad too early. He ended up unable to judge character, and showed no respect toward me. I could feel there were deep misunderstandings between us over the years. Joe was just a catalyst that quickened the breakdown of our relationship, but I had to deal with the company and Joe first, before I could start mending our relationship. No matter what, I've realized that Billy is definitely not fit to manage the company, nor is he worthy of being my successor. Neither his abilities nor his emotional intelligence qualify him for the job. I can't let my father's lifetime of hard work be ruined by him. 2 months passed, and Laura managed the company seamlessly. Apart from discussing major decisions with me, she handled everything else on her own. I had made the right choice. Joe also seemed to lie low for a while. I couldn't afford to relax, but her cunning didn't show. I could only have someone keep an eye on her. I knew Joe. To an average person, the 5% of shares Billy had wouldn't be a small amount, but to the group, it was a drop in the ocean. She wouldn't give up easily. "Mom, you can't delay the surgery any longer. Chemotherapy is just a temporary relief. You need the surgery to cure it," Laura told me after a chemo session. "Sigh, I'm just afraid I won't come back from the operating table. I'm worried about you." "I'm not worried about the company at all. With your capabilities, you'll do fine. But I'm very concerned about your own happiness," I said weakly. The chemo process was truly agonizing. Sometimes, I wished for a swift end, even if it meant going to hell. "Mom, don't say that. Someone as good as you will definitely live a long, long life," Laura said, tears welling up in her eyes. Ironically, she wasn't my biological daughter, yet she was more caring than Billy. "Laura, do you still like Billy?" "I don't know. Liking him for so many years has become a habit," she said, lowering her head. Laura once told me she had escaped from an orphanage. The staff there beat and scolded the children constantly, and the kids fought each other for food and toys. To make matters worse, the director was a hypocrite, preaching morality while secretly being a pedophile. With no other option, she ran away, but had to scavenge for food every day. She happened to save me once, and Billy and I gave her a home. When you brought me home, the first thing I saw was a handsome boy in a black sweater coming down the stairs. That image is still etched in my mind. I know all these years he only saw me as a sister, never giving me any hope. Maybe now he doesn't even see me as a sister anymore, Laura said with a bitter smile, her eyes filled with sorrow. She had a crush on Billy for so many years, yet Billy treated her this way because of Joe. Ultimately, it was Billy's poor judgment. Billy missing out on you is his loss, not yours. Now you can see, being related to him placed a halo around him that prevented us from seeing his shortcomings. Mom, I understand. I'll try to let him go. Since he has found his true love, I won't cling to him anymore. I stroked Laura's coarse hair, knowing she was just trying to ease my mind. This child had always been stubborn. Once she set her mind on something, it was hard to change. Letting go wouldn't be easy. I've arranged with doctor. You must have the surgery this week. It's only in the intermediate stage, and the success rate is very high. Believe in yourself, you'll be fine. Okay, I agreed, looking into her bright eyes. Initially, I wanted to finish dealing with Joe before taking care of my health, but somehow I said yes. The surgery was successful. During this period, only Laura was by my side. She was either at the company or the hospital, running herself ragged and losing a lot of weight. One day, Laura said she had some unfinished business at the company and had to work late, promising to visit me later. She told me to rest if I felt tired and not wait for her. Around 10:30 p.m., it was raining outside when I got a call from an unknown number. Hello, are you Laura's family? She was in a car accident. I was shocked and barely caught what the caller said next. Luckily, she was in the same hospital, so I rushed downstairs. The lights in the operating room were on, and I was stopped from going in. I had no idea about her condition. At that moment, I saw an unusually handsome young man standing nearby. I had seen this person before. He was Leo, the son of the richest man in the neighboring province. Unlike my son, who was a spoiled rich kid, his skills and abilities were beyond measure. 2 years ago, he took over his family company and made drastic reforms, doubling the company's revenue in a year. He was simply brilliant. Hello, Auntie. Laura is your daughter, right? I'm Leo. He greeted me politely. Leo, did you bring Laura here? How is she? Is she in any danger? Leo told me his car was right behind Laura's when the accident happened. When the accident occurred, Laura was crossing the intersection. A large truck ran a red light and came at her. She turned the wheel sharply, but couldn't avoid crashing into the roadside barrier. Leo suspected it was an act of revenge, because when the truck driver didn't hit Laura the first time, he stepped on the gas to hit her again. Thankfully, Leo and his driver pulled Laura out of her car and into theirs before the truck driver could succeed. Since Laura was in bad shape at the time, Leo didn't have time to catch the truck driver, who managed to escape. A cold fear gripped my heart, reminding me of what happened 8 years ago. Shortly after Stephen and I discussed divorce, I had a similar car accident. I was driving to the hospital for a prenatal checkup when a speeding truck slammed into me. Laura happened to save me, and my car exploded afterward. I was severely injured and lost a daughter. After the incident, the driver turned himself in and claimed he was driving while fatigued, receiving only a 3-year sentence. He never admitted any connection with Joe, but I knew it was Joe's doing. They were from the same place. I held most of the company shares back then, and Stephen was cheating during our marriage, meaning he wouldn't get much in a divorce. But if I died in an accident, my assets would go to my 2 remaining family members, Stephen and Billy, who was a minor at the time. Stephen would inherit my company and assets, allowing Joe to marry him and become the wealthy wife she dreamed of. Before I could recover, Stephen died in a plane crash on a business trip. Joe, seeing that I survived and lost her support, fled abroad and vanished. Joe reused the same scheme, hoping to take my second daughter from me. This time, I would make her pay for the pain she inflicted on me, on Laura, and on my unborn daughter. Thankfully, Laura wasn't badly hurt, just some skin injuries. Her right arm was fractured, she had 2 broken ribs, and some scrapes on her head. I was heartbroken and filled with hatred for Joe. Mom, I'm okay, don't worry. Laura, lying on her hospital bed, looked pale and sickly. I realized the driver this time was the same one who hit you 8 years ago. It was Joe's doing for sure. I was too careless, thinking I had enough people watching her, but she still found an opportunity. I thought letting go of Billy would make her give up, but I forgot how crazy she was. I announced transferring my shares to Laura, pushing Joe into a corner. Joe orchestrated both accidents to gain the company and the shares. If Laura had died, I wouldn't easily find another heir, and after my death, the shares and assets would fall to Billy. Then Joe could control Billy and get everything she wanted. Her plans were clever, but Laura and I were fortunate to escape. To get direct evidence, I tapped Joe's phone this time. Sure enough, in a few days, I heard what I needed. The driver couldn't keep his cool and called Joe. When will you give me the 3 million you promised? I'm hiding every day because of the hit and run. I told you not to contact me recently. You didn't get the job done. Where would I get the money? Joe sounded frantic. With Leo there, how could I hit her a second time? But now I've already hit her, and the police are after me. You have to give me money to run. You couldn't kill that old hag Lily back then, and now you can't kill Laura either. What use are you? Don't call me again. I won't give you a penny. Joe, you bitch, if you push me too far, I'll go down swinging. I'll give Lily a recording of our deal. I'll tell her you hired me to hit her and cause her miscarriage 8 years ago, and now want to kill her foster daughter. Lily hates you already. She'll ruin you once she finds out. Andy, are you threatening me? If Lily calls the cops, you'll go back to prison. Hit and run plus your past record, you'll get at least 10 years. Even with my orders, you are the one driving. You think she'll spare you? I've been to jail once. I'm not scared, but you have delicate skin. Andy chuckles darkly. Inside, the crazies will ruin your face. You won't have Billy or Stephen to protect you. You'll suffer and die terribly. You maniac. Joe, enraged but knowing she had to calm him. Hide in places like Thailand or Vietnam. I'll send the money in batches. You didn't kill Laura, and Billy the loser won't get much money or shares. It's all because of that old hag Lily, kicking Billy out and leaving everything to that little bitch Laura. No way. 3 million in cash, not a penny more, not a penny less. Bring it to the small fishing village by noon tomorrow, or I'll give the recording to Lily. With that, Andy hung up the phone. I could almost picture Joe losing his cool on the other end of the line. I was looking forward to the dogfight that would ensue between them the next day. The next day, I sent my men to stake out the small fishing village, ready to catch Joe and Andy in the act. My health was still terrible, and I had to take care of Laura. I could only monitor things remotely from the hospital, with my men constantly updating me, but I was confident this time they wouldn't escape. Before noon, my men called me. Mrs. Lily, something's wrong. Did they get away? No, you need to come here. Just tell me what's going on. Don't be so mysterious. I was suddenly anxious. We couldn't have missed them again, could we? Billy showed up. Billy? What's he doing there? Joe must have done all this behind his back. Why would he be there? I had a bad feeling about this. Billy showed up early and he killed Andy. Hearing that, my knees went weak, and I collapsed to the ground. Next door, Laura and Leo heard the commotion and ran over. What's wrong, Mom? Are you okay? Laura limped toward me, still recovering from her injuries. What happened, Aunt Lily? Leo and Laura asked in unison. He had been visiting Laura a lot lately, clearly interested in more than just her recovery. Laura, tears streamed down my face. Billy, he killed someone. What? Laura started crying too, mostly in disbelief. Mom, that can't be true. Where is he? We have to find him. Aunt Lily, I'll take you both there. We sped to a rundown shack in the small fishing village. My security team informed me that Billy and Andy were inside. Wiping away my tears, I tried to compose myself and walked in. As I opened the door, I saw Billy sitting on the floor, his hands covered in blood. Andy lay next to him, a knife in his chest, clearly dead. When I entered, Billy looked at me in a panic. Mom, I killed him. He desperately tried to wipe the blood off his hands, but it had dried, and he could only get a bit off. His hands, body, and face were covered in blood. Mom, I made a mistake. He began to cry uncontrollably like a child who had done something wrong. It turned out Joe had been terrified after Andy threatened her and wanted Billy to help her out. She deceived Billy, claiming Andy had bullied her and was now blackmailing her. In her story, Andy was an obsessed stalker who saw her as a goddess. He followed her everywhere, and had even tried to sneak into her room to molest her in her sleep. When he found out she liked Billy, Andy began stalking Billy to ensure he didn't cheat on her. When he realized Laura also liked Billy, he tried to run her over with his car. After the accident, Laura survived, and Andy fled. He then threatened Joe, saying she had tried to kill Laura and demanded 3 million, faking recordings to back it up. Impulsively, Billy arrived at the fishing village ahead of time and spotted Andy in the small shack. During their fight, Andy revealed Joe's true colors. 8 years ago, Joe had a hymenoplasty and tricked Stephen into believing she was a virgin. Though she was pregnant with Andy's child, she told Stephen it was his, and he believed her, insisting on a divorce. However, Joe realized that even if they divorced, Stephen wouldn't get much of her assets. She hatched a sinister plan, promising Andy money to hit and kill me with his car. If I died, Stephen would get control of the company and all the assets. Once they married, Joe could use her child to secure at least half of it. But I survived, thanks to Laura, though I lost the baby I was carrying. Andy went to jail for 3 years with nothing to show for it. When Stephen died, Joe fled abroad. Andy had considered turning her in, but feared a longer sentence for attempted murder, so he served his time quietly. When Joe and Billy returned, Andy demanded money from her. But after Joe got together with Billy, she got nothing, and I transferred the stock to Laura. Joe wanted Andy to kill Laura. If Laura died, Billy would be my sole heir. If it weren't for Leo protecting Laura, she would have been dead. Joe's pregnancy was a lie too. She had been with Andy since she was 16, had 4 abortions, and her uterine wall was too thin to get pregnant. Now, exposed and on the run from the police, this bitch refused to pay Andy and tricked you into killing me. Only you and your dead dad believed her lies. Hearing Andy's story, Billy relaxed his grip, and Andy tried to strangle him. Billy had no choice but to pull out a knife from his clothes to defend himself, and accidentally stabbed Andy in the heart. "Mom, I was wrong," I heard Billy say. "I shouldn't have believed the rumors and doubted you. I shouldn't have blindly trusted Joe. I thought you betrayed Dad after he died and you brought Laura into our home. I couldn't face it and chose to study abroad to avoid you. Avoid this family." Billy was crying his eyes out. He had finally grown up, but he had also made an unforgivable mistake. I patted his head and said, "Turn yourself in." Joe ran away. I handed over the recordings I had collected of her hiring someone to commit murder, along with some evidence Andy had, to the police. As it turned out, it wasn't just me. She was a serial offender. She had previously pushed an original partner down the stairs to their death, and that man had abandoned her afterwards. That's when she set her sights on Stephen. Andy had surveillance footage of her pushing the woman. In this information age, it was impossible for a wanted person to escape. A few days later, the police caught her in a nearby town. After she was caught, I visited her in detention. She was wearing handcuffs, and the moment she saw me, she angrily shouted, "It's all your fault. If you, this old woman, had died sooner, I would have had it all. It was all supposed to be mine. Mine. We, Stephen and I, were the real love. You, an old woman occupying a nest, go and die." She raged, almost fanatically. "You tricked Stephen by being pregnant with Andy's child, and that's your so-called true love. And let's not forget, the company has always been mine. Stephen was my husband until his death. Stephen loved me. He didn't want to live with you. He was going to divorce you and give everything to me. He was even going to leave everything to our child. Whether he loved you or not, you were always just a mistress. Even if your child is Stephen's, there would only be an illegitimate child." She tried to hit me, but could only yell through the glass. "Stop lying to yourself, Joe. You only liked Stephen's money and power, not love. In the end, the only person you truly love is yourself." I hit her weak spot. "You used Andy's greed to achieve your goals. Used Stephen and Billy for money and power. You shamelessly destroyed families under the guise of true love, even resorting to murder. You're just a selfish pest." "No, I'm not. Lily, you old witch, you should die. The brat in your belly should die. Laura, the little slut, should die too. You all should die. The company is mine. Andy, Stephen, and Billy were all my dogs. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison. I'll make sure you rot there." I didn't mind her hysteria, because that was her true face. I walked out of the detention center and looked at the blue sky. The revenge was complete, but I didn't feel particularly happy. I didn't want to live in hatred forever, like Joe. I would always look forward and cherish those beside me. Billy got sentenced, and Laura visited him once. I didn't know what they talked about, but after that, she really let go of Billy. 2 years later, she married Leo. The wedding was grand, with both families coming together, making it the explosive news of the year. After that, she and Leo often got snapped by paparazzi. Their happiness frequently trended online. I knew she had married the right man, as Leo could pamper her like a queen. A year later, Laura and Leo had a child, a chubby and adorable girl. Sometimes when I looked at her, I wondered if my daughter would have been just as cute if she had survived. Not long after, my cancer relapsed, and the cells spread to my organs. I knew there was no cure for me. I had no regrets, except feeling a bit sad hearing Laura's subdued sobs after being awakened by pain in the middle of the night. But I knew that even without me, she would be okay. She had Leo and their daughter, a happy little family. By then, Billy hadn't been released yet, and I couldn't visit him anymore. I told Laura that if I was gone, not to tell Billy right away. I wanted to remain a healthy memory for him. In my final days, my health suddenly improved. Though Laura comforted me continuously, we both knew it was the final rally people often talked about. I went home and stayed with Laura and her daughter. On my deathbed, I vaguely saw a cute little girl waving at me. "Mom, come quick. Grandpa and I have been waiting for you." I smiled and followed her steps, saying, "I'm coming."